All right, so in the last video, I was saying that I think that some of what different people have experienced under different forms of oppression that amounted to large-scale, industrial-scale mayhem, suffering, loss, genocide, um, is that there's a few very effective techniques that can it's a very small motion, but it can proliferate and go broad to amount to large scale, unconceivable scale, destruction and even death. Well, the one is displacement. So that's like inequity. That is having somebody pay more for something than what they're getting, more labor than what they're more labor than value is inequity, and that can amount to horrible outcomes. That life is not viable like that. But then what would make that possible and keep that in place would be different misconceptions, because a lot of times when you're about to have something, when you're about to be dispossessed of something, stolen of something, disenfranchised of something, it actually takes a little bit of your own participation to get on down far enough with someone to get hurt by them, and that would require misconception. So you would say that the one word would be lie, but when you say lie, that implies a moral component, and you actually can get you cannot manage something as profound, I think, as life, and nuanced as life, vitality, without an appreciation for paradox and different profound sublime things, where you can be limited if you speak in moral terms. Because like where does life come from? Life comes from lovemaking, but is lovemaking really entirely moral? Like it's, if we're just being honest, it's it's the most beautiful of things, but you can still be, you may not experience the totality of what and who you are if you are limited by moral preconceptions, by ascribing value to things that's settled. Because it's not so much that you applied value to something, right or wrong, as being right or wrong, that's what's limiting, but that you decided it once and for all. Because what can be right at one moment can be wrong at another moment, and what can be wrong at another moment can be can be right at a context. But I've made other videos discussing about cussing, cursing, profane, and vulgar, and I won't go into that again. But just to say that to do something out of turn, out of place, is a combination of all vulgar, cussing, profane, and cursing, all that together. But the more simple expression would just be vulgar. Is that it's not to a time and place and context that is suitable, that is sexy, when it's vulgar. And so that's also like with moral judgments, is that it's not that something may not be moral or being accurate as being appreciated as moral, but when it's decided once and for all, as though that context is all context, that is preconceived and overlaid upon all context, then that can be a limitation to speak in moral absolute terms, because you can say morality is really relative as long as we're speaking from a relative limited perspective. But a stronger word than lie from that standpoint would be a misconception. Is that, so you think you're gonna go over here and this is gonna be waiting for you, or you're gonna do this and get this in return, and then you make adjustments based on your understanding of an agreement, such as a treaty with other times. So you're because it actually does require communication and trust to get along in life and value. So you're existing on the same land as people, and coming into contact with like colonialism and different things. And so that requires cooperation, because value will be the, like, I think as human beings, we're meant to share this earth. We are really meant to share things in life. We're meant to share what it is to exist and also what it means to exist. We're really to share that in the truest sense. But if you've ever had to share something that has like real consequences of value, which when you have value on the table, you have implications beyond life and death on the table. That's why it's not that you're playing with someone's money. You're playing with someone's value. That is their means of livelihood and furthering their existence and the existence of people they love, when you're in the realm of value. But so if you've ever had to share anything of value with someone who is self-centered, self-interested, arbitrary, contrary, arrogant, entitled, privileged, um, you may say chauvinistic, and unreasonable, unforgiving, unkind, but also unscrutable, like playing the cards close to the chest like a poker player, uh, not honest, um, not equitable. Because maybe honesty that's a little bit arbitrary term because that's almost speaking in moral absolute terms when you say honesty like that. But they're not none of those things not forthright. But you're obliged to share things because that's actually the nature of your existence, both of you, and the land you're upon and its existence is to share. But you're faced with someone like that, and that's very difficult when it comes to agreements and because it requires faith, good faith, trust, honesty, honor to deal with people when you have shared interests. But that's nothing of what most people experience in life and have experienced going back these centuries, I think. But what would make that horrible would be misconception within that. So I think we have a lot of misconceptions that exactly disserve us to this day, to the amount of compromising our opportunities at life, health, and living in a further uh, uh, stance upon the earth. Is misconception like that, and one of the misconceptions is our understanding of what this earth is, as though it were an end into itself and not a transitory plane, but also as though we had come to this earth from without. One of the things that I really wish would have been conveyed that I was saying in another video is that I don't think that we that the if, a lot of times you imagine how this earth came into being, and you imagine the furthest extent of time and space is where things would have came from. Something reached in from the furthest extent of time and space to put us here. But is it possible that the furthest point within us is actually amounts to and contains and is beyond what we would appreciate as the furthest extent in time and space, yet also the most present is extent in time and space? According to a scholar I spoke with in privacy, and I just don't want to blast him, he was saying that what we have, what is understood as inner space, is vastly more profound, diverse, and broad than what we could appreciate as outer space. And we may actually understand something of what we are to do, what we amount to, what we are from, where we are going, by appreciating inner our inner reality, in that what we have for our parent, our human body is largely or exact replica of our existence within the ocean, and that from that standpoint we may have never left the ocean, us mammals and reptiles, and that we took the ocean with us onto the land in maybe ocean suits, like you take a scuba diving suit to go in the water. Maybe we're in a land walking suit that we took out of the water, is the exact opposite of a swimming suit or of a diving suit. And we're still, all of that we came from is still where we are and where we're at and where we're going and what we're with. But we also come through our parents, who are also a replica of the ocean. But we come through our parents, from within our parents, to be here, to yet be within ourselves. And when we have our own likeness upon this earth, it's from within us that they appear. And so I think that maybe we came to this earth from within ourselves, not from without ourselves, or from without the earth, or from without the universe, but from within ourselves, within the, I don't know if within the earth, but within ourselves, within the universe. From within would be how our appearance might be here. And that might be what's so confounding about different notions of materialistic science, and fathoming how things came to be, come into being. Again, come into being, not come out of being, but come into being. And I think that some of the what's daunting and what's demoralizing about considering survival of the fittest, which I think that some things really affect human beings deeply from a young age, their whole life. One is the concept of being tasked with toil for an entire life, according to the Bible. But another one is the concept of survival of the fittest, and always furthering an existence upon the earth, indefinitely afraid to not have progeny. A lot of people, that's a fear for a lot of people. But I think that if you think that we have to keep going forever on a transitory plane to some point of satisfaction, that might not be how we got here or where we're going, but from within. So how, even if we don't take one more step upon the earth, us or our heritage or our line, we can always yet go back within from where we came from. And that may be where we're going from, however far we walk on earth. And there's peace in appreciating that, I think.